Two. Welcome to the seventh episode of the Meet the Coaches series. Hawlucha takes the title. Once again, I'm your host, Caleb the C Gull Gulley, and this time we get to sit down with the coach who has the most immaculate jawline, back-to-back champion in season
Uh,
7 and 8, and of course is the head coach of the Chapel Hill Hawluchas, John Morpheus Moore. John, I'm excited for you to be here. How you doing, man?
what's going on? I'm excited to be here. I'm doing great. Always a pleasure when I get to sit down with the seagull himself.
Hey,
It's an honor to be here. How you doing?
we're doing good. It's been a long off season, but we're getting close to this upcoming season 11. And so, episode 7, this has been fun going through all the different coaches and hearing the stories on what got everybody involved with the draft league is a lot of fun. So, with that, we'll get into the first question. When you were originally in the onboarding process of the draft league, I was told that your team name was going to be the Chapel Hill Haunters. Up until like the ninth hour or something like that, you caused a switch to the Hawlucha mascot. What was the reasoning for the change?
That's a great question. So Haunter, my favorite Pokemon. Or I guess the whole Gengar line is just awesome. I love ghost types. The color scheme's awesome. I got my purple hoodie on.
Yeah,
That's where I want to be. And when I first joined the league, my friend Parker, the Memphis Maychamps coach, was just like, "Hey man, pick a place, pick a Pokemon that kind of starts with that letter, Chapel Hill Haunters."
yeah,
Uh, H is a tough letter to come up with good Pokemon for to begin with. Um, and I had no idea the other team names, the other team color schemes, or anything like that. Got in there, saw TTR was another ghost type with a purple scheme, and
yeah.
being the new guy, I was like, I can't, encroach on his style quite like that. So he made the pivot. Hawlucha's got his own flair to him. He's got some swag to him, and so
Yeah.
honestly happy with the change up.
I think it's fit you well. I mean, it's came in strong. It's been a great fighting type within the league, been a contender basically from the get go. So, a fitting team name, Chapel Hill Hawluchas. I've just always kind of wanted to know, what made that switch for you. So, I've always been a fan of the red. I've liked the red color scheme you got going on.
It's solid. I mean, I'm a redhead, and so red always kind of clashes with me. Uh, but Hawlucha, he's kind of a clashing kind of Pokemon, so I think that fits.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I guess going into our next question, after talking about a little bit about that is from these interview series, something I've really enjoyed is just hearing what everybody's Pokemon journey started off with. So the question here is, was there a particular person that got you into Pokemon?
There was.
Oh, all right.
I'm kind of excited to tell you this story specifically because you're a,
Well,
you're a new dad. Congratulations.
yeah,
I guess
thank you,
not even
thank you.
that new at this point. Um,
Still,
but
still
I
early.
was about 4 or 5 years old, maybe not even quite in kindergarten. Didn't know how to read yet, and my first experience with Pokemon was my dad. I got a Game Boy and Pokemon Gold, and that's basically how I learned how to read. Was we would sit down and play together.
Nice.
I called evolutions evulsions for the longest time because I didn't quite nail that. Um, but yeah, that was our experience. Basically, played through the whole game together. Learned how to read through it, got into Pokemon through it, and it's really stuck ever since. And then also, one of my first friends starting in kindergarten was Parker, and we kind of bonded over that shared Pokemon experience. Same game, Pokemon Gold, and ever since then, it's just kind of been a big staple in my life.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, I've having that father son bonding time is I love it from the dad's side of it all, but as a kid, that's awesome to be able to sit down and just have that time. So, I mean, that's actually really cool. I didn't know that. So, uh,
It's special. Yeah,
yeah,
I recommend it.
yeah,
If that comes up for you.
yeah. If I get to replicate it, I'll absolutely try to do the same. So, sounds like it worked out well for you. So, we'll give our best shot at it. No, that's awesome. That's actually I'm kind of blown away by that. It's really cool.
I love it.
So yeah. So leading into like your draft league history and looking at a little bit of that. So in season 7 and 8, you drafted this tier 3 Pokemon that for the most part wasn't used or explored in Galarian Mr. Mime. You did so well with it. that the league moved up to a tier two, which is a pretty big deal. And even as a tier two, a different team still drafted it in season nine. So, what made you so comfortable with the Galarian Mr. Mime, and why do you think it was so successful for you in those early seasons?
I also am excited about this question. Galarian Mr. Mime is one of my favorite parts of my draft league history. This was season 7, my first season in the league. I'd never played VGC before. Um, and all I knew, I think Parker told me Icy Wind was good, maybe Fake Out. And I was just kind of looking through Pokemon and, saw that he had Fake Out, he had Icy Wind, he had Screens. In that generation, he got an evolution, so I could put an Eviolite on him. He was in that tier 3 spot. And honestly, with the Eviolite, he's got pretty decent speed, sneaky special attack, access to Ice Shard priority, Fake Out, just a lot of like weird different things you can do with him. And as a tier 3, he was kind of slept on. Teams didn't really think he was a threat. And I think in one playoff series, I ran him just straight up, especially offensive, not even as a support guy. And there were just so many different ways that you could use him. You could set up screens, you could help out other people, he could get KOs, control speed. Just a really fun, dynamic Pokemon. Siri's yelling at me. Siri, you wouldn't get it. This is Pokemon. A little too ethereal for you. Cerebral. But yeah, no, he's a dynamic Pokemon. A lot of fun. I kind of got lucky. I stumbled backwards into it. I really didn't know the gem that I found when I drafted him. But that's kind of what I look for in general with my tier 3s is like, is there a consistent move or move set that I can go to that sets up other team members, kind of catches people off guard. And he just checked all those boxes.
Well, it was a master of basically everything you wanted it to do. And that was obviously the massive amount of success that it had. Galarian Mr. Mime took over the league once he got it. Then he had the sweater vest paired up with it on the trainer card to just make it even
Oh, that's
more
right.
just fantastic all in general. So it has been a staple for your team. It has been iconic and associated with your team ever since you brought it into the league, and I'm happy for it. That's the fun part about bringing people in and seeing what Pokemon they resonate with. Uh, which also
Yeah.
brings me to this next one. You had this other Pokemon that was really another really successful middle to lower tier Pokemon in Ditto. And season 10 was the first season you really drafted it officially in the league, but you also wreaked havoc in some of the offseason cups with it. You've been the only coach to successfully utilize Ditto. I'll have to ask, what is the secret? Because I can't make this thing work. You're the only person who can.
Oh God. Ditto is also a fun one. I think the thing that I love about Ditto most is there is no way to prep for it. Even if
No.
you know exactly the set that's coming. I mean, it's got one move. It's just, you throw it in there and then it becomes the other Pokemon. But that's kind of the beauty of it is it's entirely your play style that gets thrown back at you. And I just love being able to predict other people set up Pokemon. You know kind of what the other team's threats are, and you can just hold Ditto in the back and just wait for your time to toss them in, and kind of use that against them. I think with Terra types, that also helped kind of make him a little more steal your thing and then make it my own. It's also just VGC in general. Kind of sets the stage. You got 2 Pokemon out there. You can only bring 4. You're not going to bring 4 weak ones. So there's going to be strong people out there at certain times. It kind of works nicely where you can let your initial person fall in certain scenarios, and then Ditto gets a free, time to come in. He's Choice Scarf. I love people to just go fast and hit hard, pick up a KO. I think he fits my playstyle well in that sense. And it's just fun keeping people on their toes.
I mean, it's kept everybody on their toes. It has been a menace for me to prepare against. Even this past finals, what we had, the guy Chris that I was preparing with literally said, "You are over indexing on Ditto. Your entire team is terrible because of it." And that's the Ditto effect. Is just how good it is at turning the table. And you've been the only person to be able to do it. And just hearing a little bit of that philosophy is just really cool to see that thought process involved there.
Well, I think you're giving me a little too much credit.
Oh no, you get
I
all the credit
I
for
think
that.
I think Ditto shines in situations where other people have done the right sort of prep and have built good teams where they can get Pokemon in good situations and like set up. And then I just kind of can fly in blind and toss Ditto out there and kind of use that against them. But it's fun. You know, it might not be the most elegant strategy, but it is always, you know, a wild card you don't know you're going to get. Always
That's
leads to some
true.
good battles.
It's always fun to play against. Always fun to see you use the Pokemon just because you are using it. Which brings us to this next point that I think follows these two exceptional lower to mid tier Pokemon rather well. Is you were the first expansion team to win a championship. You did it using the Galarian Mr. Mime as one of your staples. You talked about it with the playoff series where you turned and made an offensive threat. So you entered that season 7 and promptly went on a tear in the playoffs, going back to back, winning 7 straight playoff matches, which is unheard of. So I have to ask you this as well. What enabled you to change gears in the playoffs to make such a strong run to become back-to-back champion?
That's also that's a tough one. I don't know if I can point to anything specifically. Uh, I think it helps, especially in season 7 and 8. I think we played everyone twice. I know we played
Yes.
at least everyone once.
Yeah.
And I was able to learn a lot in those games. I am definitely someone I think who doesn't come in with the most fleshed out draft strategy. And so we kind of pick up things as we go. I definitely make a lot of use out of the free agency moves. Kind of figure out which Pokemon I like on my initial draft list and try to build around that as the season goes on. And so I think a lot of times I do end up in the postseason with a relatively new team, or at least strategies that haven't really been fully fleshed out yet, people aren't really comfortable with. And I think that kind of works in my favor in a lot of these instances, especially if people haven't changed up their teams too much. Also, I just think postseason, you never know what's going to happen.
Right.
And I like to think that I am good under pressure. I don't know if I am, but
I would agree that you are.
you know, when you're in the battle, you gotta just trust what you came up with. And season 7 and 8, I think the other part is I was new to the league, so you guys were all comfortable fighting each other. Didn't really know my playstyle too much. I didn't really know my playstyle too much, and so it's a lot of figuring things out. I'll give you different looks, and that's hard to prep for, which is kind of an accidental thing that works in my favor.
Yeah, but now you've been around for a few more seasons, so I don't know if that's gonna come to be in our favor as the old guys or old guard here. But it's been fun watching that because like you just came in and it's like okay, like most expansion teams have been okay, but here you are, you just set a whole new level right off the bat. And then just the playoffs came around, you were very, very calm and collected in the best of 5 series. You took down uh, myself in season 7, then you took down Chris in season 8, and then it's just been some dominant seasons, postseason runs. I mean, 7-0, that didn't end actually until season 9. So, like I said, it took 3 seasons till somebody could take you down in the playoffs. So that's a huge deal that anybody's been able to do up to this point.
Just pad my ego, man.
Hey, that's
Well,
this is all you right now. I mean, it's Chapel Hawlucha time.
I appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun. Yeah, those playoff runs have been some of the most fun battles I've had in all my Pokemon playing years. It's a really cool experience, just putting it on the line and competing.
Yeah,
I love it.
always fun in doing that. And so let's just talk about this previous season what we had. Let's just be honest and frank here. Season 10 was an absolute dominant regular season for you. You posted the new record for the highest differential in a season at plus 39, which is absolutely freaking absurd. You had a 9-1 match record, and that's backed up with a 19-5 game record. So these weren't close series. These were you coming in, taking care of business, and walking out with a 2-0 W most of the time. So, adding on to these accolades, you also won your first division title and you made your third championship appearance in 4 seasons. That's freaking awesome. So, what was the difference in this past season, this past regular season versus the previous ones?
It's kind of interesting. I'm a little torn on this. I think this season I had a way more obvious, like core couple of people. Like Goldango was a staple. Ditto was, consistently showing up. Corviknight was really good for me. I had a couple people that I just really liked and that worked well together. And it was tough, week in, week out, bringing people like that and getting these big wins. I think I got a little pushback where I used more of the same people consistently. And it's kind of tough where you're winning. And so, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But at the same time, part of the fun is, switching things up and trying new things out. And you were the one team that I lost to this season.
Very luckily, that was the only way that managed on my side.
Well, I lost. I lost in the regular season. I lost in the championship. And I think your team was the one team that was really well positioned against kind of that core group that I had. And I struggled honestly throughout the season trying to find a way to adapt to your team without kind of messing up everything else I had. Because with 8 teams out there, there's a lot of variety, and it's really hard to find that missing piece specifically for one team individually. And so I do think I found kind of a winning strategy in 95% of the cases, and it worked out well. But you had an answer.
I got lucky
And
is what it was.
there's no luck in Pokemon. This is a game of pure strategy.
If you say so. Well, so talking about more of this season 10 that you had, talking about your main strategy, you've touched on it a few times here. Is this explosive, high tempo gameplay? Was that the idea going into the draft, or is this something else like an underlying style that you've just kind of picked up naturally on?
I think that is when I have the most fun, is having stuff just hit hard. It's fun
Yeah.
doing damage to things. Going to the draft, I knew I wanted Goldango.
Yeah.
That's about as far as I got. Uh,
Turned out okay
you
for
kind of
you.
pick up. Yeah, it was all right. You pick things up as you go, but again, I'm always a big fan of the free agency moves. My free agency moves this season were a little interesting. Uh, some worked out, some didn't. I think I really enjoyed the Hatterene. The Mabasif was good. The
Yeah.
Frostlass was a miss. Um, but generally, that is my strategy. Is get in there, take momentum, take control of the game if you can, because everyone's doing their own prep.
Yeah.
And if you kind of sit around and let people do what they want to do, at least in my experience, that's not my strength. And I feel like when that happens, games tend to get away from me. If I've got too convoluted of a game plan, then I tend to overthink things in the game. Keeping things simple and hitting hard, I think, is typically what works for me. Also, you got to know your win conditions.
Right.
And that's kind of how I build my teams, is who do I want to be my win condition, and let's make that happen.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty thought out process to me. The end goal is to get all the Pokemon's HP bar to 0. Hyper Offense does that.
That that's the idea.
Yeah.
Uh, doesn't always pan out that way.
Yeah. I mean, it still works out. So talking about Generation 9 and kind of this past season and what's going on, it brought us this ability to tear into a different type. Your team, I guess you didn't like the gimmick because it was the least amount, it wasn't used really at all in the league. So what is your reasoning for using this gimmick so conservatively?
That's interesting too. I didn't know that I was the one that used it the least.
I mean, we were the two lowest, but you were like even half the total number that I had, which is insane.
Is this on like total terror types used, just like in a
No,
game?
just total, just hitting the Terra button at all.
Okay,
Yeah, not Terra
interesting.
types, just using the gimmick.
Yeah, Uh, that's curious. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of terror types personally. Um, I think it's cool. It's an interesting dynamic, but for me, it adds so much like choice. You kind of get paralyzed by all of that, like, all his options.
Yeah,
Any type is a lot of power. Um, and I think for me, it didn't feel like it was adding a dynamic that my team really needed. Like I loved with Dynamaxing, you could Dynamax anyone. Psychic
right.
type moves, you could set up terrains, you could set up weather effects, you could set up speed boosts, other stat boosts. There was just so many different dynamic ways to do it where like there was a very competitive reason to Terra type. I mean to
Right,
Dynamax.
right.
Terra typing to me was kind of like, I'm gonna take this Pokemon's inherent strength in its stab type moves and just change it to a different stab type move. And if I didn't have a clear cut change in that stab move, I guess you can always tear it to your same type and make that
Right.
more effective. I think a lot of times in my situation, I had a lot of steel types. Corviknight was a steel type, but it's also flying. And so if I made it
Right.
steel, removes an immunity. I think it was just kind of, I would win games without terror typing
That's
and would kind of
perfectly
forget about
reasonable.
it. Um,
Perfect. Perfectly reasonable.
but, I was surprised to see that. I don't think I made a conscious decision not to terror type, if I'm being honest. Um,
I mean, if that's how it works out, that's how it works out. So
yeah, that's
I
funny.
yeah, it's something interesting that when we were checking stats, that was something that popped up. We're like, oh wow, I don't know the exact number. I just know that you were like significantly lower than everybody else in using the gimmicks. So not that it's a bad thing, just it was an interesting stat that we pulled.
Yeah.
So, our second to last question here. You were the first team to draft the Generation 9 Pokemon with Goldango. You specifically said that that was your target in the draft. You also used a grand total of 6 different Pokemon from Generation 9. I don't know if you knew that or not. I think it was the highest or second highest in the league. So
Did not
the
know that.
question, yeah, now you do. The question is, are there any Generation 9 Pokemon that you didn't get your hands on that you're looking forward to using or seeing in the upcoming season?
Yes. You stole a couple of them. Uh, Quaquaval. I
Yeah,
don't know how you pronounce it.
I
I
don't
think
either.
he's awesome. Uh, he's got a really cool move pool. He's got Moxie, he's got Aqua Step. Basically, get a free Dragon Dance if used
Yeah,
correctly. In my mind, that kind of plays to my style of
yeah,
like get
I
people
would
set
agree.
up, get them hitting hard, get them going fast. Um, Kilowattrel was just a menace. Electric Flying is a really cool typing.
Yeah,
Uh, and he's got Tailwind. He can be used in a lot of different ways. I think electric types in general are really interesting because most of them have Thunder Wave,
yeah,
uh, and you can kind of use them in support roles in a lot of instances if they're not a main offensive carry. Um, Outside of those two, and those two are more kind of like standard Pokemon in my opinion, where it's like they're just good
right.
generally. I think Gen 9 kind of shook things up a little more than a lot of gens. You've got like Cyclozar and Orthworm
Yeah,
with the shed tail. I think that's a cool dynamic. Um, Palafin, Zero to Hero, kind of interesting abilities and moves that change VGC up a lot that we haven't really seen before. So I'd love to use some of those. Obviously, the Paradox Pokemon are awesome.
yeah.
Uh, I don't want to give away too much of my draft strategy to you here, but there's definitely people out there that we're looking forward to trying to grab and play with.
Yeah. The Paradox forms, some of my favorites have been like Great Tusk and Fluttermane. I just love the designs
Yeah,
of those. And so seeing those coming in, personally, those are like my takes on some of the ones that are coming in that'll be a lot of fun to see. And so
yeah.
you were one of the biggest adopters of Gen 9. So I just obviously had to find out on that. Uh, but this brings
That's
us to our
how.
last. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, this past season was the first season of New Generation.
Yeah.
We're all figuring stuff out for the first time. Why not, try out the new Pokemon and see if anything sticks?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good strategy. I mean, it turned out to be a fantastic season for you, so it must have worked. Uh, so all right,
Almost didn't
yeah,
didn't quite get across the finish line. Thank
yeah.
you, sir.
Well, we'll move on from that bad memory and let's ask about your favorite memory of the draft league. This is probably my favorite question from all the interviews that we've had in this series.
Well, I can throw it, right back in your face. I think my favorite memory was that first championship victory.
Uh,
Uh,
Bittersweet on my end.
yep, it's playing in championships is a lot of fun. I don't think I have felt those emotions in a Pokemon battle ever before. You're so nervous and you've been playing all season and you really bonded with your team and you're competing. We're all getting older. After you graduate, you're not playing sports anymore. It's fun to
Yeah,
like compete in things.
right.
Uh, and that just, it was a cool experience. Everyone's around there watching. It's really fun being a part of the league and just getting to be in those situations.
Yeah, always a good time. I will say this: I'd never figured out if you had Ancient Power or Magical Leaf on that Togekiss. It took me till that fourth game to figure it out. Once you one shot my Dynamax Charizard with Ancient Power to find that out, and it was devastating, devastating on my end. Uh,
Yeah, that Togekiss was something special in that run. Um,
but
that's part of the fun.
yeah, absolutely part of the fun. Well, John, I appreciate you taking the time doing this interview. Lots of fun stuff we got to talk about through your entire draft league history. Get some really cool stories about what got you into it. Playing with your dad on Pokemon. Like that's awesome stuff. I appreciate you taking the time. And if you got any final words, this is your last chance. So,
Hey, well, thank you so much. This has been a blast. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for letting me be a part of this league. It's a really cool experience. A lot of special people here. All these coach interview videos, please go watch. If you are watching this, thank you in general. Uh, you know, I look forward to the next season and I hope you all do as well.
all right. Well, with that, we will see you in the next video, our episode 8. And till then, we'll probably see you in season 11. We're looking forward to it. Till then, have a nice one.